the culture of life and the law. We'll explore that and more on today's edition of Life Matters. Brian Johnston is the Western Director of the National Right to Life Committee. He has served in many capacities while advocating for innocent lives, as California Commissioner on Aging, as Chairman of the California Pro-Life Council, on the board of the National Legal Center for the Medically Dependent and Disabled. And now here's our host, Brian Johnston.
You're listening to Life Matters. We're your program on the right to life, on what it really is. What's at stake when we say there is a right to life, and that the government has a duty to ensure this right. For this reason, governments are instituted among men, it says. That's what our founder said, that governments ensure and protect the lives of those that they govern, particularly the innocent. That's the reason we give policemen guns and badges, to protect the lives of those that can't protect themselves. So it's an important issue, and it's reverberating now through our culture. We're meeting right now with Dr. Patrick Marmion. He's a medical professional. He's been in medical practice for many years, since the early 70s, and he has a lot of experience in actually seeing and confronting the violations of the right to life. By the way, I'm Brian Johnston, and I've recently written a book. I've been at this for a while. If you're listening on radio, you heard some of my background. I recently wrote a book, The Evil Twins, Roe and Doe, How the Supreme Court Unleashed Medical Killing. I appreciate a new movie that's out now. It's called Roe v. Wade, very straightforward. And I know the producer and the star. And the fact is that it only looks at Roe and some of the social circumstances. It doesn't get into the decision, and it does not mention the real decision that empowers doctors to kill at will. And that was a companion decision. Roe v. Wade dealt with the laws of Texas, but Doe v. Bolton was addressing the laws of Georgia. Now, both of them could have just dealt with those laws. Instead, Justice Blackmun and 6 other members of the court conjoined the two decisions into one. Roe v. Wade and Doe v. Bolton were conjoined twins, and they're evil twins. And you need to know that in Doe v. Bolton, the Supreme Court specifically said that there's a health exception. In Roe v. Wade, it sounds like they're controlling and limiting abortions. But in Doe v. Bolton, it says, nope, doesn't matter about trimesters. Doesn't matter any other factor. It is the doctor who determines if there's a health issue. And by health, we're not talking about hard cases. And specifically, Justice Blackmun spells out health, we mean sociological, psychological, relating to the woman's age. Any of these factors is what I mean by health. And it's up to you, doctor. If you can come up with one of those reasons, then you can do the abortion at any time. So it's entirely what comes out of the doctor's head that can justify killing that baby. Most people don't know that. They think somehow Roe v. Wade controls abortion. In fact, it does the opposite through Doe v. Bolton, the unexamined twin. And in my book, I go into that. I talk about these twins. I talk about the fact that you need to know the full significance of the law, what Doe v. Bolton does. I appreciate what Father Frank Pavone has said about the book. He said other things, but among other things, he says it's powerful and timely. Craig Roberts from KFAX Radio, an old friend, says that it cuts through the cultural fog. And what he means by that is your culture has told you this is about Roe v. Wade and given you the impression that Roe somehow controls or monitors or limits abortion. That's a lie. It's a lie that the media repeats. Doe versus Bolton gives physicians the authority to kill vulnerable human beings in the womb at any time in pregnancy. And now you're knowing the real fact because you probably realize that now, if a child's born alive, now physicians are saying, well, we wanted to kill a kid. And gosh, here they are squirming around on the table. What are we going to do? Well, let's just make sure they're dead. And now that's the law in several states, where the intentional medical abandonment, you can help that child is as healthy as any other child, but no, we want the kid dead. They're not in the womb anymore, but we're still going to ensure that they're dead. This is frightening, and the implications are grave because it isn't just in the abortion issue. It's the entire practice of medicine that was assaulted. Doctors are no longer healers. They are now the hired killers of society. We're going to talk about that when we come back after this.
Life Matters continues after this.
Are you willing to step up to be a lifeguard? We're asking you to consider becoming a Life Matters lifeguard. On Life Matters, we cut to the depths of this cultural battle of ideas that has robbed America of its core values and robbed the innocent of their right to life. Anything you can pledge is appreciated. But if you pledge $19 a month, we will make you part of the Life Matters lifeguard team, getting you the important tools and dynamic information to help save lives and encourage others in understanding the lurking dangers in today's deadly cross currents of culture. Your pledge helps us with our costs of broadcast. It keeps the full understanding of the right to life going out over our numerous radio stations and also facilitates the important podcast that carries even more programming. Please go to the front page of the Life Matters website and click on the donate button. Your donation is deeply appreciated.
And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
Welcome back to Life Matters. We're your program on the right to life, on what it really is. Dr. Marmion, we were talking about serious pregnancies, and in serious, difficult pregnancies, there's still a lot of hope. You don't have to kill that kid. But the attitude of medicine is, no, if there's any complications, we just want the kid gone. And that's been our experience in terms of dealing with nursing homes and the medically vulnerable, that a lot of medicine is taking that position. And we have entire institutions that are dedicated to the medically vulnerable, and those lives are at great risk right now.
Oh, yes. And I was labeled, and people that felt the same way as I do, as a speciesist, that I was taking resources that could be used to improve our environment and help children with leukemia and cancer and take them away from these babies who potentially could be disabled and redirect them. Of course, we know that never happens. Funds are never redirected. They're spent. So, but that was an argument. They said these babies in the nursery aren't really human. They have no more right to life than a salmon swimming up the Columbia River and trying to get over the Bonneville Dam.
Wow.
And that resources could be spent more wisely protecting the salmon in the Columbia River.
Let me just comment on that, because it's such a common argument now in euthanasia, where it's said, look, we're kinder to puppy dogs. If a puppy dog is sick, you don't keep that dog alive. It's out of compassion. You kill it. That's actually inverting why we kill puppy dogs. And let me give this example quickly. We have a hierarchy, and Western civilization is built on that hierarchy. Very basic principle. Western civilization is built on the idea that human beings are more than mere animals. That's a premise of Western civilization, that you're not just an animal. If I'm this has happened, in my kitchen, a dog gets through the screen door and I'm trying to wash the dishes and do things, I'm going to stop. I'm going to take the time and bring that dog back outside and close the door behind them. However, if a mosquito comes in and bothers me as I'm washing the dishes, I will kill that mosquito. I will kill it. It's because I have a hierarchy of values. Western civilization is built on that principle, that in our hierarchy of values, human beings aren't just an animal. Human beings have a divine spark. And even Nancy Pelosi admitted that recently in a speech when she was attacking Donald Trump. He called the gang out of El Salvador animals, and she was insulted. Of course, these were people who skinned people alive and basically were living under the law of the jungle. She said, no, all of us have a divine spark. I have to agree with her. She was affirming a basic principle of Western civilization. You do not treat human beings like animals. That's what allows us to live in society. If you do treat human beings just like animals, you become a destructive culture and a danger to others. And we're well on our way with that. That's what the Germans did. The Germans started their experiments and their medical killings dealing with the disabled, dealing with World War I vets who couldn't be cured. They were hopelessly ill. And so they started killing them first because they were costing money. And that's where they started the killing that came to the death camps. They had practiced that killing in other institutions. So we're looking at the change in medicine. We're dismissing human lives. By calling us just animals, you're missing the whole point of why we live in society.
Yeah, Brian, your reference to Nazi Germany brings to mind a term I used in a recent publication, Blutkeit. It's called bloodness. Blutkeit. It's shared responsibility for atrocities.
Oh.
And that's what the medical profession does to their residents in training. Not only obstetrics and gynecology, Brian, but residents in family medicine now are under increased pressure to become abortionists when they come out of their training. Your family doctor could be doing abortions. You know why? They want to get the residents' hands dirty, sear their conscience, and they cannot speak out against something they've been involved in. So it's a conscious effort to first exclude pro-life people from training programs, and second, once you get them in there, to fully indoctrinate them into abortion atrocities and making you participate in performing the abortion, counseling women for abortion. And if you don't, then you are going to be booted out of the program. And we call that Blutkeit. It's called a shared responsibility. Silences experts, future experts. They will never speak out against it because they've been involved in it. Similar to what happened in Nazi Germany. The people couldn't speak out against it because they were brought into the decision-making to do it.
And it's very subtle. Usually it's language, as you very clearly showed with the young mother who's under a lot of emotional stress. They actually teach them the kind of language to use. And they want to imply that it's the patient's decision. But they set up the parameters such that there's only apparently one decision to be made. And it's, well, it's going to be painless. This is the easiest and the wisest course of action, but it's up to you. And if you choose otherwise, will your marriage last? There's so many implications. You're not going to have enough money. This is going to really destroy your life. So they know what they're doing. And it is intentional, and it's language. And the use of language you have to watch for. Those of you who listen to Life Matters know that we focus on that a lot. You have to listen carefully to the language of this dystopian, dysfunctional culture. You are in a battle of ideas. If you don't think you're in a battle of ideas, you've lost. You've already lost. If you don't think there's something to fight for in your own mind, they're fighting for your mind. They are using language right now to take over how you think and view reality. You got to get a hold of this, and you got to hold on tight because they're going to resist you. They're committed to a culture of death, and they're going to use language to do it. So right now, those of you who've been listening know that here in California, it's gotten very bad. We know on the abortion issue, there's unlimited abortion in California. If the federal government doesn't pay, the state of California will pay. It's government-sponsored killing. This is not choice like you choosing shoes or what kind of car you're going to get or dyeing your hair. No, this is actually a freebie, because if you got to buy shoes, you're going to say, well, I don't know if I can afford that pair. I'll buy this pair. No, this is not choice. This is something the government is pushing. And now the medical profession is pushing, as you heard from Dr. Marmion, but it's gotten even worse. And that is the fact that we have assisted suicide legalized in California. So if someone is depressed, some of you have read my other book, Death as a Salesman, What's Wrong with Assisted Suicide. And a lot of people don't think it through. They think it is compassionate. It's not compassionate to kill any more than it is if I was to kill my dog because, it bothers me. So I'm just going to, the dog came through the screen door, I'll just kill it. Nah, that's not how you should treat a dog. And it's certainly not how you treat another human being. If another human being is a problem to you, there might be other ways around that problem. Very quickly, if you or a loved one are in pain and the physician is not dealing with the pain, the answer is simple. It's 3 words. Get another doctor. It's not kill the patient. If someone's in pain, the resources are there to deal with even the most difficult of pains. And without putting someone into a stupor, pain management is really improved since the Hippocratic Oath. You think you're in pain? Imagine 3,000 years ago. You had to chew on certain leaves, but Hippocrates knew you can deal with pain and you can deal with depression. You don't have to kill that patient. And yet that's happening now in California. There's now 2 bills in the California legislature. We're going to deal with them when we come back and go into depth because we want you to take action. If you don't know what's going on, it's going to blow your mind because this is coming at you. This is a dystopia and it wants your life as well as the lives of your loved ones. I wish that was an overstatement. We'll be right back after this.
Life Matters continues after this.
Life Film Fest is the creative outreach in Hollywood that's changing Hollywood and the culture. There's many films you've already seen that actually had their start at Life Fest in Hollywood, their premiere. But more than that, we work with people throughout the industry who want to creatively bring the message of life. Not just hit you over the head with it or preach to you about it, but creatively impact the culture so that hearts and minds of our fellow citizens understand the depth and the breadth and the warp and the woof of what the right to life really is. Be part of Life Fest Film Festival and make a difference.
Every life does matter. Every life is significant. Find out about the exciting cultural change impacting Hollywood. Go to lifefilmfest.com. And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
Welcome back to Life Matters. We're talking about the right to life, and specifically we've been talking about medical killing and what's involved in that. And it's pretty straightforward. That's what's involved. Doctors killing human beings, even though it violates the Hippocratic Oath. We went back to the origin of that here in the U.S., but throughout Western civilization, that's been a battle back and forth. Other cultures have embraced it, specifically Germany in the 1930s, and that didn't end well. So we're looking at a situation that here in California, we want to talk about particular measures, 2 measures that are up in the California legislature. You need to be aware of them. Senate Bill 380 is going to the Senate floor. Senate Bill 380 now removes the safeguards on assisted suicide. It makes it so that only 48 hours needs to pass once the person makes the request. There is no psychologist that checks them for depression. And yet that's the most common thing. That's the number one indicator. Every good doctor knows that the number one indicator of a deep depression is suicidal ideation, suicidal requests. And the Hippocratic Oath knew that. I will give no deadly medicine even if asked. So this isn't a new issue. And yet we're told it's a new issue and this is a new ethic we need. But those safeguards, again, we already have assisted suicide, and heirs can be involved in assisted suicide. Literally an heir can say, hey, Grandma, well, I just want to help. And I know you're using resources and Jimmy really wants to go to college. I don't know if we can do it, but we're just here. It's going to be painless. So if you want any help with that, we'll help. That's legal. You can actually do that in California. But it's getting worse because now what's happening is that all of the limitations on the doctors have been removed. What's worse, and this is what we were talking about with Dr. Marmion, good doctors are now under pressure. We're not just talking about Catholic or Christian. We're talking about any good ethical doctor when they're told, hey, doc, just kill me. This new law says you must turn them over to a killing doctor immediately. If you're not willing to kill them, you have to say that ethically you won't do it, and you must immediately give their file and the patient's care to a killer doctor. Well, a good doctor knows that that person needs involvement from others. Maybe they're depressed. They can give them a prescription, or a psychiatrist. They could talk to a psychiatrist, get some counseling. This bill says anything you say will be considered coercion. If you're a good doctor and you want to give other advice, you're coercing that poor person. They need to be dead. This is an incredibly draconian way of approaching medicine. But as Dr. Marmion has pointed out, they've been doing that with abortion for a long time. So that's Senate Bill 380. And unfortunately, it's been passing through committees like a knife through water. It's incredible. People don't understand the dangers, and it's very dangerous. The other bill is AB 705, and it says that if a religious institution or any ethical medical institution doesn't allow medical killing, but one of the physicians on staff believes that they should practice medical killing, they need to go ahead and do that. That person on staff should go ahead for the sake of their conscience. They should be free to kill that patient. Now, what that means is that a Catholic Lutheran, just a Hippocratic medical facility, can't protect their own patients against this. It's absurd, but that's where this is going. So those are two bills. AB 705, contact your assembly member. Senate Bill 380, contact both your assembly member and your senator. This is a very evil forcing of death and forcing complicity by good doctors. It's alarming. Dr. Marmion, you were talking about that very issue of complicity. And let's pick that up.
Yeah, I think, well, in Washington State, we had a kind of a similar legislation that didn't make it out of committee, fortunately, but it would have allowed non-physicians to do the counseling, like a nurse or a social worker. So fortunately, that didn't make it. But, well, and we're talking about doctors being complicit. Despite 30 years of effort, actually almost over 40 years of effort to coerce obstetricians in training to buddy their hands and become proficient in abortion and advocates for abortion, it hasn't panned out as they had imagined. We have, for example, 15 years ago, 85% of obstetricians and gynecologists practicing in the community, or even as professors, would not do an abortion on their own patient if asked. They would refer them to someone else. You would think under the current climate that would have been depressed, that maybe we'd be about 70 or 60%. Not so. It's actually increased to 94% in the 2016 or 2018 study. So 94% of obstetricians will not perform an abortion on their own patient if asked by the patient. They will refer them. So even though their hands are sullied, they're not going to speak out on it. They know how horrible it is. They don't want to be part of it. But they're like the bad cop. They'll refer the patient to a colleague for some kind of prestige. Maybe the colleague is going to refer them patients with some bleeding problems or an ovarian mass or something that they're going to get a benefit from. And sometimes it's a colleague in their own group. So the colleague is performing abortions, bringing income into the practice. And so this obstetrician who won't do it is still reaping the benefits of having had the proportion performed on his patient.
Wow. Something you had mentioned in the break, and I want to really hit hard now for people to realize, is the very slow push.
I was going to say, because of the decreasing number of obstetricians who will do them, the powers that be want to recruit nurse practitioners and midwives and family doctors to become our abortion providers.
Yes, it's going beyond that, though. And that's where I want to look at, if you really study radical feminism. And unfortunately, I spent a lot of time in Santa Rosa, California. We had a feminist women's health center there, kind of a progressive world out on the Sonoma coast. There's some in Chico, Berkeley, really big Boston Women's Health Collective. They published the book they started years before Roe with Our Bodies, Ourselves, teaching women to do their own abortions and encouraging self-abortion. And it actually stems directly from, again, you may think, well, that's weird, but it's true. Marxism believes that women, it's not the rich oppressing the poor. It's not one race oppressing the other. The first oppressed group in a Marxist world is women. And therefore, the ability for a woman to decide, she herself must have the freedom, whether or not she'll be a mother. It has to be her own decision and not someone else's, which is why radical feminists did not like Roe, because it gives it all to this specialist, this doctor is the special killer. They want that privilege. They've not let go of that. They are pushing hard for that right now. And those of you following the news, you know that our current president, President Biden, has instructed the Food and Drug Administration to allow RU486 to be distributed at will through the mail. And by the way, that wasn't accidental. If you look at this president, he doesn't come up with his own ideas. They were waiting. In fact, when that announcement came out, there were several groups said they're already stuffing envelopes. They're sending out RU-46 like candy. This is extremely powerful and dangerous drug. It harms women first. That's actually how it works. It tells the woman's body, you're not pregnant. And it alters her physical body dramatically so that the child can't get any nutrition. And women have died from RU-46, but their goal is greater than that. They want ultimate freedom. Doctor?
Yes, Brian. I was involved in researching adverse drug event reports from the FDA on mifepristone or RU-486. And it was just reported in the, I think of the journal as Law and Medicine. The report shows that the adverse events are underreported. They're very serious. Several deaths were reviewed. And it's being promoted as a safe do-it-yourself abortion, but 20% of the women end up in the emergency room. Some have lost their uterus, some have lost their lives because of infection. You would say, how can you get an infection? Well, it turns out that the combination of drugs they use suppress the woman's immune system and allows an infection to ascend from the uterus into their system, and they become septic and die. Healthy young women, 22, 23, 18 years old. We reviewed these cases and reported it. It shouldn't be allowed. It's a dangerous drug. It needs to be put on a restricted.
Yes.
Well, from our standpoint, it shouldn't be available, but it definitely should not be over the counter. It definitely should be going through phase 2 or 3 trials.
There is a real battle for life. It's happening now. It's not a metaphor. Remember, every life is significant. And that's why we cherish your life. And that's the reason we have laws to protect those that can't protect themselves. So thank you for listening. And thank you, Dr. Marmion, for joining us.
Thank you, Brian.
Learn more about everything in today's show online at lifematters.life, where you'll find all the resources you need to protect life. Life Matters is a production of the California Pro-Life Council, the state affiliate of National Right to Life. Wherever you are in the nation, you can find out more at National Right to Life. You can find vital pro-life information and also find the access to your state and local Right to Life affiliate. Get informed and get involved.